I am sure a lot of people are already familiar with the name Castlevania. It has a lot of games under its title that spans mostly on the older consoles. We're going to talk about today one of the series games that helped spawn the now famous game genre, Metroidvania. Specifically, we're going to review Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This entry on the Castlevania franchise is what changed the series forever, as it introduced not only RPG mechanics like leveling up and equipping systems, it also introduced map exploration. It strayed from the typical Castlevania formula of going through different stages until reaching the final stage with the final boss of the game. Let's start with the story. Symphony of the Night starts off after the ending of the previous title, Castlevania Rondo of Blood. It is made clear that this is the case because of the little flashback fight that the player will need to do when starting a new game. The whole final boss fight in Round of Blood remade in Symphony of the Night. However, 4 years after the events of that game, Lickster Belmont, the protagonist of the Round of Blood, mysteriously vanished and Dracula's castle reappeared. Alucard awakens from his slumber and goes to the castle to investigate it himself. At the very end of the game, he finally encounters his own father, Dracula. Alucard kills him, and the castle is once again banished from the earth. There are a lot of weapons the player can choose from to equip Alucard with, ranging from swords, maces, knives, all the way up to bombs, shields, and other support items. Some weapons are dropped by enemies, others are just collectibles littered across the castle, some are even hidden on breakable walls. The music, as with all Metroidvania games, are superb as well. Each musical piece aligns with the place that you are in. For example, the music that plays when you first enter the castle's Alucard has this upbeat tone. It feels really hopeful, like the start of an adventure. You can also kill enemies with just one hit, which adds to the excitement of the adventure and the music that it brings. Alucard's main equipment gets taken pretty early in the game, however, and you will be stuck with subpar equipment, and that's where the item hunting begins. When you get to the second area, the music changes into this ominous but still adventurous type of music. The player is now aware of the fact that they are no longer this overpowered vampire half-breed and only has either their fists or the rusted knife that they can pick up soon after losing Alucard's weapons to defend themselves while the area is full of enemies and traps. It's the start of the player's climb to where Dracula or whoever is the current lord of the castle is resides. This game also introduces save points, which are signified by a heart-shaped object in a small room with heartbeat sound effect. Unlike previous Castlevania titles where the player only gets a fixed amount of lives and needs to restart the whole game when it gets depleted, Symphony of the Night has save points like typical RPGs. Alucard loses all of his hit points and the player goes to the game over screen, they can simply reload their saved game, losing only the progress that they had after saving the game. This is typically only a small hindrance unless the player is looking for a save point for 30 minutes, which can really happen in games like this, especially when you are not familiar with the map. The game rewards people that like to explore and backtrack. This can be positive thing for a lot of people that like this genre, but it may be a con for people that are only looking to finish a game in one sitting and don't like to backtrack that much. The game has two endings, but it doesn't really tell you directly. If you just play the game normally without backtracking or really exploring every nook and cranny, you'll eventually reach the boss, defeat him, and reach the ending credits. However, if you backtrack and get the correct items, read item descriptions of certain items, you will unlock a second ending and an entirely new castle to explore. The game also offers an in-game map, which will aid players in exploring the castle and will be useful in backtracking that fills out automatically while you explore. It is a very simple map that shows the path that you have already traversed. You can easily see the save point rooms on your map as well since it is colored red, contrasting with the overall blue motif of the map. At the beginning of the game, your map looks really lonely. It's filled with one tile of blue at the very left corner of the whole screen, but once you get to fill out by exploring the whole castle, the map will actually take up the whole screen in such a way that when you press the map button, you won't even see the game in the background anymore. This can be a good thing as players can use it as a reference and make a guess whether they've already explored the whole area or not. The map will be enclosed with white outline once it is fully traversed by the player. So if the player brings out the map and see that there's a huge rectangle with no white outline, chances are they still haven't fully explored the whole area. However, white outlines aren't the only thing to look out for when trying to complete the map. Since I've mentioned that the whole complete map takes up most of the player's screen, it could be a hint that there are still areas that need to be explored. If the player notices that there's a huge chunk of the game still exposed even when the map is on the screen, chances are they still haven't looked hard enough and have yet to fill that part of the map. Aside from weapons, Alucard can also use relics and summons to help him in his quest. All these relics are completely optional, aside from the Blue Jewel relic, which is required to unlock blue locked doors scattered through the castle. These relics can be rewards from boss battles, placed on a pedestal in a room, or in hard to reach places that require other abilities that the player will eventually collect later in the game. These relics range from showing enemy names, the damage the player deals to enemies, all the way to summoning otherworldly beings to aid you and make Alucard transform into a wolf, a bat, and a mist. And now on with the cons of the game. Personally, the only complaint that I have with this game is that the variety of weapons really doesn't do much. It is fun to collect items if you're really into Metroidvanias, but the weapons don't really offer that much differences, aside from how it looks and the item descriptions. Sure, there are weapons that have different elemental affinities, some weapons do feel heavier to attack with than others, and a few of them have special mechanics as well, but overall it doesn't really offer anything else. Every time I start a new game, I always end up on using the same weapons that I can find from the beginning and change to the newest one that I can find in new areas. I think that it's just a personal pet peeve and I'm pretty sure that other people enjoy using different kind of weapons on each playthrough that they have. I still enjoy collecting items, but I don't really personally like their similarities with one another. In summary, the game is overall super fun. Dracula's castle is huge as it is, but there's never a dull moment in exploring it. It is littered with well-placed enemies and hidden upgrades, and items that will help Alucard clear the castle and ultimately reach his father and stop whatever evil plans he has this time. The game is an assortment of enemies, albeit some of them are just recalled as previous enemies. It's still fun to see how enemies synergize with one another, attempting to stop Alucard on his tracks.